Have you ever had a pet cat? You take care of them and watch them be cute in their various ways. That's something that makes you happy, isn't it? Why would anyone ever get tired of something like that? This was a question posed in the depths of the fortress of Melusine by a resident that inmates think of as an angel of salvation, sent to bring redemption to criminals. In this world without light beneath the waves, Sigewinne has become their ray of sunshine, bringing a radiant warmth to their dark, damp prison with her meticulous and enthusiastic nature. She is noticeably different looking from other Melusines, piquing the curiosity of many. But perhaps it is not just her appearance that sets her apart from the others. Hello and welcome if this is the first video of mine that you're seeing. You can call me Emerald, and I make design analysis videos about Genshin Impact characters. If you're interested in learning more about the real-life influences behind these characters' designs, please click that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up. It's hugely appreciated. I also stream twice a week on Twitch if you'd like to come over and say hi sometime. This video is going to be a deep dive into the folklore of Melusines in European history, along with an analysis of the Lolita subculture, its aesthetic, and how these design elements relate to Sigewinne both as a Melusine and her place within the region of Fontaine. Like I always say at the start of my videos as a quick disclaimer, this is just a collection of observations I found and pieced together. I'm not stating anything as fact, nor is this an exhaustive list of all design-related influences. A full list of sources, along with the quests I'll be mentioning, can be found in the description box as well. Before we dive into a freshwater pool of real-world folklore tales about Melusines, let's examine and establish their place in the world of Teyvat. While I don't tend to go into a lot of detail when it comes to in-game lore in my videos, plenty of other content creators do a much better job at that than I ever could. For contextual purposes, I'm going to give a brief summary on how Melusines arrived onto this plane of existence, and the roles they play in Fontainian society. Melusines are an all-female species in Fontaine, first introduced to us during the 3.8 special program. As Alice would put it, what they lack in size they make up for in their sense of justice, diligent in their duties and never acting without prior authorization. Their origins date back hundreds of years, given life from the destroyed body of Elenas, an abyssal creature whose remains can still be seen within the Beryl region of Fontaine. As such, Melusines are sometimes referred to as the daughters of Elenas. Melusines resided in Elenas' body until they were found by the sovereign hydro dragon himself, Neuvillette, who brought them to live and work in Fontaine. This appeased Elenas' wish for them to bring joy to the citizens of the world, who he adored so much. At first, humans did not take too kindly to Melusines. They were seen as an alien race who could not be trusted. Some even speculated that their existence was a bad omen of catastrophic events to take place. We saw evidence of this during Neuvillette's story quest, which showed the series of events leading to him passing a law prohibiting Fontaine's citizens from treating Melusines poorly. He also declared that all Melusines should be referred to with she/her pronouns, rather than being called it in a derogatory way, like so many people had been witnessed doing. Nowadays, below ground in the partially submerged tunnels of the Beryl region, Melusine village can be found, containing many Melusine inhabitants who spend their days carrying out daily tasks and exchanging mechanical components with each other. This is their way of using currency, both in monetary value and as a way of showing thanks. On the surface in the court of Fontaine, the roles of Melusines vary, from aquabus attendees, court stewards, administrators, and marechaussee phantom officers. Of course, we also see medical practitioners like Sigewinne, who spends most of her time working in the underwater fortress of Melusine. Their enhanced perception of the world around them is very different to that of humankind. The way they see colours, beauty, emotions, and the well-being of others gives them a natural edge in these societal roles. For example, Sigewinne can detect a person's relative emotional state to their physical health just by taking a quick look at them. During her story quest, she also let us know that Melusines categorize humans' appearance based on their level of cuteness. Have you ever heard of that study of elephants that said when they look at humans, their brain receptors light up in the same way ours do when we see a cute puppy? I have no idea if that study actually holds any weight or not, but I like to think it's true, because if it is, I would like to be considered cute by all elephants and Melusines alike. We'll be taking a closer look at the concept of cuteness later in the video, so please hold that thought for now. Every resident of Fontaine is now willing to protect a Melusine from danger. This has been made abundantly evident through many quests, and rightfully so. The people do so willingly, not just because Neuvillette declared it as law. Many believe that Neuvillette holds more affection for Melusines than humans, and they regard him as their idea of the perfect father. He brought them to live in this region because he could plainly see their potential and their kindness, recognizing them both as his dependents and his successors. They are now valued members of society and are treated equally, with the same rights as humans, both in their duties and their wrongdoings. Genshin Impact loves taking inspiration from real-world mythology when constructing the regions of Teyvat, and while some depictions are more accurate and, well, respectful than others, Melusines are no exception. In European folklore, Melusines are often portrayed as spirits found in bodies of fresh water, such as holy wells or rivers. They are always female and either depicted as a serpent or a fish from the waist down. Sort of similar to a mermaid or a siren, but there are some key differences between them. Sirens are typically known for calling out with beautiful singing voices to lure people to their demise, whereas Melusines, according to legend, call out to noble families to warn them of oncoming catastrophe. The etymology of the word Melusine comes from differing sources, some including the word melus, meaning pleasant or melodious, and the French folklore tale of Melusine, who was the leader of a group of fairies. The most well-known recorded story relating to Melusines, however, comes from a tale dating back to the 14th century in France. Narratives of this type were most commonly spread through medieval manuscripts and word of mouth. As the story goes, Elenas, the king of Albany, an old name for Scotland, was out hunting one day, still grieving the loss of his wife and trying to find a way to cope. He came across a holy well where he met a beautiful fae named Persine. The two fell in love, and when Elenas proposed to Persine, she agreed on one condition: that he was never to see her when she gave birth to or bathed their future children. He eagerly promises her this, and they later marry. Persine gives birth to triplet girls named Melior, Palatine, and Melusine. When Elenas is informed of the news of his daughter's birth, he immediately breaks the promise he made to Persine and goes to visit her while she nurses their newborn children. Persine leaves the kingdom of Albany at a moment's notice with her infants, going to a lost isle known as Avalon. Melusine, Melior, and Palatine grow up there, taking daily trips to the peak of a mountain where they gaze down at their former kingdom below. On their 15th birthday, Melusine asks her mother why they had been taken to Avalon from Albany. Persine tells her of their father's broken promise. Melusine springs into action immediately, seeking revenge on Elenas. She convinces her sisters to aid her in the plan of entombing him in the mountain along with all his earthly possessions and fortune. Persine is overcome with rage when she finds out what her daughters have done. As punishment, Palatine is imprisoned in the same mountain as her deceased father, and Melior is sealed within a castle for the rest of her days. Melusine, on the other hand, is cursed with a similar affliction as Persine, taking the form of a two-tailed serpent from the waist down, but only on Saturdays for some reason. If she is ever to marry a man, he must keep a promise to never see her on those days. But if he breaks that promise just as her father once did, she will be forced to live her life in her half-serpent form, spending 3 days lamenting whenever a member of his noble house passes away. Her tale continues on, and one day she meets a man named Raymond by a stream near a place called Poitou. The noble Count Raymond had stumbled upon this place after accidentally killing his uncle, as you do, and so Melusine consoles him. They later fall in love, and as fate would have it, he proposes to her. Just as her mother had once done, she lays down one condition before accepting, that he must never lay his eyes on her on Saturdays. Blinded by his affection for her, he eagerly accepts, and for 10 years he does keep that promise. Melusine gives birth to 10 sons during that decade, and aids Raymond in the construction of extravagant castles, providing him with an abundance of wealth, which they would surely need in order to raise 10 sons. Meanwhile, Raymond's family grow increasingly suspicious of Melusine. Why is she always spending Saturdays by herself? What is she doing with her time? She can't possibly be attending church or being an upstanding member of society while not under our constant surveillance. Raymond lets these suspicions get to him, and just like Elenas once did to Persine, he breaks his promise to her, taking a peek into her chambers one Saturday. He manages to keep this transgression a secret for a long time, until one of their sons murders the other, and in a fit of grief-filled rage, he blames Melusine for this incident, calling her a serpent. In one swift moment, Melusine transforms into a dragon and flies off, never to be seen again, only returning in the dead of night to nurse her 2 youngest sons. Well, that's a lovely story, isn't it? Folktales often tend to be a bit gruesome, and one passed through so many centuries is bound to have some extra flair thrown in along the way for dramatization purposes. We can, of course, draw some parallels from this legend in relation to Fontaine. The most obvious being that Melusine's tail end of the story takes place in France, and her father's name was Elenas, forever locked away in a mountain, just like the skeleton of Genshin's Elenas being visible above and below the surface of the Beryl region. Melusines in-game, however, still regard their father with adoration, setting up Melusine village in a very warm place, next to Elenas's heart. The legend of the Melusine in mythology can actually be dated back even further than 14th century France. This is something I was delighted to find out during my research, because when Fontaine was first released and we got to take a stroll around the city, I noticed something special about some of the Melusines. Well, special to me at least. Some of their names look very similar to Irish words, which got the wheels in my brain turning immediately. Ireland is known to host a plethora of mythological tales, particularly those relating to the supernatural and water. Aoife, according to the tale of the Children of Lear, was the stepmother of 4 children. She became increasingly jealous of their father's love towards them, and placed a curse upon them, transforming them into swans, leaving them with their human sense and voices intact. Eivel was known as the guardian spirit of Crag Lea, meaning grey rock, overlooking the river Shannon, the longest river in Ireland. Blahana, meaning little flower, was the daughter of a fairy king from Westmeath. Lea, like I've mentioned, means grey. She was a fierce and steadfast warrior woman who resided in the mountains with a druidess, preferring her company over that of a man. Puka, who happens to be my favourite Melusine NPC, is the Irish word for ghost. In mythology, they are known to be shape-shifting mischief makers, often taking on the form of a black horse with eyes that glow like embers in the night. Slua, or the plural Sluashi, were known as hosts of the unforgiven dead in Irish and Scottish mythology, made up of the souls of the dead flying through the air, most commonly seen around the pagan festival of fairies, or Halloween. Shira and Tirona, from what I gather, are probably derived from the Celtic goddess Shirona, a deity associated with healing freshwater springs, worshipped by many throughout Europe in ancient times. Glashtig is a spirit from Scottish folklore, known to cast stones along travellers' paths to veer them astray, along with luring men into her lair to drink their blood. A final honourable Scottish mention goes to Elphin, Queen of the Fairies, well known throughout many folktales. As it is migratory in nature, the Melusine legend can also be attested in the medieval literatures of Ireland. Many variations of the story have been cited throughout history. However, it all comes down to the same core plot. A mortal man marries a supernatural woman that he meets near a body of fresh water. A condition is given before marriage, their relationship is successful until he inevitably forgets or neglects her privacy, and the woman flees, bringing their children with her. This legend is more rare in Ireland than other European regions, but it is very possible that the earliest written versions of the Melusine story did originate here, then known as Macha rather than Melusine. The story of Macha most likely entered France through Britain, as medieval Irish scholars would travel throughout Europe using the network of monasteries they founded. Pagan goddesses are often linked to water landmarks when looking at ancient Irish religious beliefs. For example, the River Boyne took its name from a goddess named Bowen. According to legend, she was forbid by her husband from approaching a magical well surrounded by 9 hazel trees. Hazelnuts would fall into this well and were eaten by the speckled salmon below, granting them with powers of great knowledge. Bowen challenged the powers of the well by walking around it counterclockwise. This caused the water to surge violently, rushing down towards the sea, creating the river now known as the River Boyne. It caused the land to no longer be barren, and as a result, the river is considered to be a fertility goddess. The Irish Melusine story is somewhat similar. When her husband breaks his promise to her, she flees with their children into the depths of a lake, causing the dry land surrounding it to become fertile. Place lore told through local legends can therefore be thought of as a manifestation of the conflictual relationship between man and the supernatural. When dealing with the gods and their conditions placed upon humankind, man must be careful when treading the waters of consequence. Sigewinne's constellation and the name of her story quest gives us another clue about her design influences. Now, every time I say this word, my accent jumps out, so please don't make fun of me, okay? I can't help it. Nereides are a type of sea nymph from Greek mythology. They are the daughters of the so-called god and goddess of the sea, Nereus and Doris, who was an Oceanid. Nereides symbolize everything that is kind and beautiful about the sea, singing in melodious voices and crowned with branches of red coral. They are another example of small female water spirits being birthed from another deity or powerful figure, once again representing hope and goodness towards humankind. Alright, so we've spoken a lot about mythology so far in this analysis, and while a lot of mythology is rooted in real-world places, there are some tangible influences we can look at in more detail when deciphering what makes up a Melusine in Genshin Impact. Jaruna parva, more commonly known as sea bunnies, are a species of sea slugs native to Japan, the Philippines, Tanzania, and Papua New Guinea, among other regions. They are usually less than 1 inch long and have antennae that look like bunny ears, that are actually called rhinophores. These are sensory organs that allow sea bunnies to detect chemical scents in the water along with changes in currents, much like Melusine's heightened perception of the world around them. They also need these strong senses in order to find each other, because they're very small. Their external gills can be found protruding from their backs, looking similar to a small tail. Melusine's faces in Genshin look quite similar to those of fawns, along with some of their rhinophores and tails. These baby deer have speckled fur, just like the dark speckles seen on sea bunnies' bodies, which are present to give predators the impression that they're toxic. Fawns are known to symbolize innocence and purity, and in Chinese mythology they represent longevity and robust health. Good thing the citizens of Fontaine have Sigewinne to cover those bases. The attention to detail in Sigewinne's design is synonymous with her dedication to learning everything there is to know about human behaviours, and her sweetness is also reflected in her style. There is a subculture of fashion that stood out to me straight away when first looking at Sigewinne. Lolita is a style that emerged as a small-scale fashion subculture in Japan in the 80s and 90s. It is heavily inspired by clothing items seen in Victorian and Edwardian styles, and has increased in popularity over the decades due to its elaborate, delicate, and meticulous look. This goes without saying for those who are familiar with Lolita fashion, but I do just want to mention for clarity's sake that the Lolita subculture is not and should not be associated with Nabokov's novel of the same name. I just wanted to make that clear before moving on. Before we take a closer look at the design elements that make Lolita so recognisable, I want to speak a little bit more about a particular word that I've used a few times now, because it is an area of research that I specialise in the most and find extremely fascinating. That word being subculture. What is subculture and what leads people to engage with it? Subculture can be defined as a subset within a larger culture, often having beliefs or interests which vary from those of the larger culture. People's engagement with subculture typically stems from a desire to be associated with a group that shares similar ideals and stylistic interests. Individuals may adopt certain ideologies which lead them to curate a particular identity through the means of style, either due to individuality or a more group-based way of thinking and behaving. Subcultures most commonly develop as a result of societal disillusionment and various socio-economic issues which are experienced collectively. This is due to the divisiveness of culture in any complex society. What people do depends upon the problems they contend with. These problems are largely brought on by governments issuing changes in class structure and policies regarding work, school, leisure, and crime. When coupled with a promise of unlimited affluence and opportunity for all, that more often than not fails to be upheld, people ultimately feel hard done by. This process of polarization leads to a desire for revolution, which is expressed visually and sociologically by those who engage with subcultures. Lolita style is encapsulated by extreme frivolity, utter cuteness, impeccable manners, and puffy skirts. To the oblivious, it may be viewed as an outrageous spectacle, but if I may add my own opinion, I think those who choose to wear Lolita fashion are walking pieces of art, meticulously crafted and pleasing to the eye, with more and more details weaving together the longer you look at an outfit. People who engage with this subculture use fashion as a way of constructing a portal to a dream world, where the theme of childhood is perpetuated as the ideal state of being. Perhaps Melusine's internally youthful looks can be viewed in the same light. Leading its followers down a path of creative escapism, Lolita manifests itself as a network of visual and behavioural resistance against conventional and traditional culture. Their appearance is strikingly different to those who engage with the more tepid nature of mainstream society. When someone cultivates a look based on the aesthetic criteria of a subculture, it can help to emancipate them from their fears, frustrations, and anxieties that come with the pressure imposed by society. If even for a short time when dressing up, they are liberated and can feel secure within a sense of identity and individualism amongst their peers. The intended childish nature of the aesthetic represents the temporary refusal of adulthood, the denial to engage in rigorous social etiquette that is forced upon them. Despite being a smaller scale subculture, Lolita has grown to become a global phenomenon. Its ideologies reinforce the way fashion can play a key role in escapism through fantasy, a visual resistance against conventional culture. Fashion is a game of the continual pursuit of the new. people create new lifestyles, and other people follow. Lolita was first popularized off the back of the visual kei movement of the 1980s, mimicking the style of an elaborate doll. Followers of visual kei music also played a role in the establishment of Lolita by taking inspiration from their idols' androgynous fashion trends. The typical wearer style is a reflection of doll or fairy-like images, decorated with hyper-feminine elements such as frills, ribbons, lace, bonnets, and petticoats. The subculture can be categorized according to gender expression also. For example, the style known as Cadona is inspired by the typical Victorian boy's outfit, consisting of knee-length pants, suspenders, ties, bowler caps, and long socks. The overall silhouette of Sigewinne's outfit is much closer to this style than the more traditional Lolita, but we'll speak more about that a bit later in the video. The most common styles of Lolita fashion are divided into three main groups: classic, sweet, and gothic. With classic Lolita, we see a lot of neutral, dusty, toned-down pastel colours, delicate floral patterns, heavier fabrics, draping and layering, large bell-shaped petticoats, often with bonnets for headpieces and matching parasols. Think Marie Antoinette or Little Bo Peep. Sweet Lolita can be categorised by warmer, brighter, candy-like colours, such as pink, blue, white and yellow. Patterns and embellishments that look like sweets, pastries, teddy bears and teacups are often seen as well. These cohorts aim to give a more fun, bubbly impression in comparison to their demure classic Lolita counterparts, but they are no less elaborate and meticulously put together. The same can be said for Gothic Lolita. This group can of course be identified by its much darker tones, such as black, purple and blood red. Its aim is to convey the gloomy, melancholic and pessimistic, inspired by Victorian mourning attire and the works of Edgar Allan Poe. Motifs such as crosses, skulls, coffins and ravens are often seen draped across Gothic Lolita looks, along with dark, smokier makeup to match. While these three main groups of Lolita fashion all have very distinct looks, the thing that ties them together beautifully is accessories. Headpieces, shoes, jewellery, gloves, socks, tights, wristbands, corsages, brooches. All of these elements are expertly curated by followers of this subculture when putting an outfit together. Whether you're going for a high concept look or something more casual, accessories are a must when dressing like a Lolita. One particular accessory that sprung to mind immediately when I first saw Sigewinne is the heart-shaped bag strapped to her hip. It looks very similar to what's called an Ita bag. These are a popular item seen in Japanese street fashion and are categorized by a clear plastic panel at the front, intended to show off some type of merchandise or trinkets inside as you carry them around. So they're an accessory made to display even more accessories. Sigewinne's bag also has an appearance similar to a heart-shaped locket, and inside it shows some type of health monitoring mechanism. This bag actually came about as the result of a request Sigewinne posted on the announcement boards of the Fontaine Research Institute. Extra urgent, specialist medical device development. Requirements: Number 1. Portable, small size, lightweight, to be carried with ease by a person with the build of a small child. 2. Needs to contain all needed medical implements for emergency calls. 3. Contains a function with which to perform routine health checkups. And 4. Must have a cute design. After about a month, Sigewinne received a most satisfactory product, attaching her new medical kit to her hip wherever she went. She did have just one complaint about it though. The name the researchers came up with was quite a mouthful: the Melusine Specialized Portable Integrated Medical Apparatus. Overall, the key emphasis for Lolita styles is one of cuteness and modesty. These are two attributes that sum up Sigewinne's design perfectly. Like I mentioned earlier, Melusines view humans based on their level of cuteness, and Sigewinne certainly takes inspiration from this in more ways than one. Her story quest revealed to us that she was given a human face and limbs by her former medical teacher, so she could treat her close friend's illness without being turned away. At this time, Melusines were still viewed as monsters by most Fontainians, and even in a time of urgency, they were not trusted to medically treat others. She kept her rhinophores hidden for a long time under a hood, even when she first arrived in the fortress of Meropide as an inmate. Altering one's appearance in such a drastic way is a punishable crime under Fontaine law. After gaining a reputation for her medical skills in the fortress, she became a well-respected member of that underwater society, often inviting other Melusines to the infirmary for tea, much like how Lolitas in the real world organise tea parties and other social gatherings. Taking a closer look at her outfit, Many Lolita influences are incorporated throughout. Cuteness and modesty are again key themes we can identify. I mentioned earlier that the Cadona style silhouette is very similar to Sigewinne's. This is notably due to her wearing sailor style shorts, tights and a cuffed shirt under her nurse's apron, instead of the typical Lolita dress which has a large bell-shaped petticoat. Other nautical elements can be seen as well, such as the navy blue pieces and the stripes on her plimsoll shoes. It's no surprise really that some aquatic inspiration was taken when designing her outfit. She is a hydro user after all, and Melusines are water-dwelling creatures, inspired by their water nymph counterparts in mythology. Being a nurse, her outfit needs to be practical, but that doesn't stop her from covering herself from head to toe in accessories. Her nurse's hat has a heart-shaped charm on it, along with the heart embossed into the front of her apron. These match the shape of her medical kit that we discussed a few moments ago. Her apron is littered with bows and ribbons that are candy-coloured pinks and blues. Longer ribbons are draped underneath her small wings, giving the appearance of a butterfly or an angel, which she is affectionately referred to as in the Fortress of Meropide. This could also be a nod to Cupid, the mythological cherub who famously shoots a bow and arrow at those he wishes to see fall in love. Even her iconic bubble gun has a set of wings to match, and she shoots heart-shaped bubbles with her own bow and arrow as well. Sigewinne also has small bows on the back of her shoe covers, or spats as they're formerly known. These were a popular accessory in France during the Rococo era. Another detail in her design I absolutely love are the bunny-shaped decorations on her gloves, shorts and between her wings. These are a staple Sweet Lolita accessory and a very clever pointer towards the real-life inspiration behind Melusines, the sea bunny. When Melusines first arrived on dry land, many of them presented gifts to humanity as gestures of goodwill. Despite facing wariness and rejection, their attempts to understand humans never ceased. Sigewinne dedicates her life to not only this, but mastering the magic of science known as medicine. She believes that gaining the ability to change natural law by preventing or reversing ailments will further bridge the gap between Melusines and humans. Humans exist for their smiles and their tears in her mind, and she will stop at nothing to provide them with comfort before they inevitably drift off. She encompasses so much about Melusines and the Lolita subculture, both in its look and its ideologies. She strives to work miracles for others through medicine, and has so much love for humankind, just like her parental figures Elenas and Neuvillette. Her style absolutely reflects her sweetness, and allows others a moment of respite in a desolate environment. Every element of her design is intertwined meticulously. The same can be said about the diligence and dedication she puts into her work. Her appearance as we know it now was birthed from rebellion, breaking the law by drinking bottled sin, ultimately for the greater good. She experienced firsthand the tumultuous relationship between humans and Melusines, and chose to tread those consequential waters, ultimately leading her to play a key role in society, revered for her cheerful and caring nature. She truly has a benevolent soul, devoted to her craft. The happiest of spirits can understand anxiety, and the most joyful of spirits can alleviate agony. And I would argue she is the sweetest Melusine of them all. Before I wrap up this video, there's something I really want to speak about for a minute. Hoyoverse have really let us down in terms of representation for the upcoming Natlan characters. There are so many cultural elements injected into the regions of Teyvat beautifully, including the music, clothing, environments, food, social norms and traditions, but the one thing they have chosen to overlook is including proper representation for the characters' appearances based on the figures they are inspired by. We unfortunately saw the same thing happen back when Sumeru was released as well. I of course make content about the real life cultural influences that go into characters' designs, and I just want to let you all know that just because I love Genshin so much, it does not mean I think it's immune to honest criticism. I will inevitably make videos about some Natlan characters, and I won't shy away from drawing attention to Hoyoverse's shortcomings. Exploring and researching the worldly elements that go into making this game is something I'm hugely passionate about, and doing so in an honest, all-encompassing way is hugely important to me also. I hope they do better in future, and I encourage you all to do the same. Well, that's gonna be it for me this time, everyone. This has been a delightful way to wrap up Fontaine, and it's also been 1 year since I started posting design analysis videos. While I wish I had all the time in the world to post videos more often, I am very proud of the content I've made, and I hope you all enjoy it just as much. For now though, thank you so much for your continued support. Be sure to let me know in the comments if there's anything I missed in this analysis, along with any other thoughts you'd like to share. I strive for this to be a space for sharing knowledge freely, so don't be shy. Leave a like and subscribe as well while you're at it. If you'd like to keep up with me outside of YouTube, you can follow my Twitter, which is linked below. I post everything to do with content updates, thoughts about Genshin, and notifications for when I go live on Twitch. Seeing some of you come over to my live streams always makes my day, and I'd love to see more of you over there. So feel free to click the link for that down below as well and give me a follow. And with that, have an amazing day everyone, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!